Hello and welcome to Jennifer Knatters. I am Jennifer and this is my knitting and nattering video podcast where I go on and on about what's going on in my life, mostly crafty stuff, mostly knitting. This week is mostly knitting with a little crochet and a whole lot of life stuff to catch up on because it has been almost 2 months since last we spoke. Yeah, it's been a while. For new viewers, thank you for joining us. My name is Jennifer. I am an American living in northern Scotland, northern-ish Scotland. There's always someone a little further north in my experience. And I live here with my husband, 2 children, and 2 cats in descending order of height. And yeah, it's really good to be back. It has been, as I said, almost 2 months exactly. My last one was recorded March 3rd, and today is April 20. I just looked, April 27th. Sorry, now I'm holding in my tea. So it has been almost 2 months, just a week shy of 2 months, and a lot has been going on. I did try recording this last week because my kids are finally back at school after Easter break, and I was a mess. And I don't just mean like out of practice a mess. I mean like so tired, words wouldn't form, and I kept staring off into the distance and all sorts of, I recorded it 3 times in one day, and it did get better with each recording, but it never got good. It was really bad. I was so out of it. And I was so out of it pretty much right up until today, because last night I got a lot of sleep. I fell asleep putting my youngest, my 5-year-old, who I will try to call Rainbow, putting my 5-year-old to bed. I fell asleep with her. So, that was like 9 o'clock. And then I slept in until my 9-year-old came in at 5:30 to say that she was awake and could she please feed the cats now, except it turns out she didn't feed the cats because she could only find one of them. So it was still a really good night's sleep, and I feel rested and refreshed and not completely exhausted for once. The other problem last time was I'd been wearing my contacts because it was a running day. My hands are cold. Like the rest of me is warm, but my hands are cold. But I've got the window open because I can hear the birds chirping outside. It is a gorgeous spring day out there. But I normally wear my contact lenses if I'm going to be wearing my mask a lot, which I still do. Yay, team, still masking. Or like on days when I'm going to be exercising, so my glasses aren't like and slipping down my nose, which they totally do. So yeah, I'd been wearing my contact lenses, and when I came home from my run, my eyes didn't feel tired. Normally they dry out and then they feel tired, and then that makes me extra tired. Well, by the time I sat down to record the podcast, they were, and even after I took them out, I was just so tired. Just absolutely worn down. Because I think it's emotional as much as like lack of sleep and other things. So yeah, I've had some good interactions that have helped fill up my emotional social meter, and I'm feeling like I'm in a good place to record a podcast today. I have trimmed it down to just 4 finished items and the 4 replacement items. I know, just 8 things to talk about, but I have trimmed it down to that to try to keep this moving along. And then there'll be a longer life section at the end. So if that's not your thing, then you can leave then. If this whole thing is not your thing, then go find something that is. There's a lot on YouTube. You'll find something you like. And if this is your thing, then thank you so very much for hanging out with me, because I have realized in the last couple of days, in the last couple of weeks, just absolutely how lonely I am right now. I knew I was lonely in the way that like everyone is lonely, but I realized I am extra lonely, just a bottomless pit of needing and then I was going through like all the things I don't do anymore. And yeah, the fact that I'm lonely is not a surprise. Yes, I said hello to new viewers. If you're coming back, thank you so much for coming back. We'll hang out. We'll hopefully have fun this time. And let's get to it. First up, I am wearing my Joan pullover, and it's got a little lace detail, ta-da, that just like gives the slightest hint of cleavage. Although I pretty much always wear it over things because I live in northernish Scotland and it's not very warm. But since I did go for a run this morning and the sun is shining, I'm still feeling, I don't know if you can see, my cheeks are still pink, but my fingers are cold. Partially my fingers are also cold because I was like washing dishes and stuff and the water in the pipes is really cold. But yeah, I finished my Joan pullover, which I only cast on in November of 2020. November 2020. It is a slightly oversized, slightly cropped, tiny lace detail, contiguous sleeve, top down pullover by Christelle Nihoul. I never know how to pronounce her last name. Crystal DK is her username. And I am so happy to have it off the needles. I basically hated knitting every stitch of it, but that's because the yarn I picked, which is Drop Sky, I think. It's a chainette ply alpaca, which that part isn't the problem. The problem is it's black. And I was knitting it on black needles, which did admittedly have silver tips, on a black cable and keeping it in a black project bag. I had black stitch markers. I don't know what I was thinking when I did this. I did not set myself up for success. It was a lot. The good news is eventually I realized I didn't have to do like shaped increases and decreases because you cannot see them. There are no, do you see any shaping? No, you can't make out individual stitches in this. But now that I have it done, black is absolutely a staple color for me in my wardrobe. I am so happy to have a black pullover. I knit this one to my high hip. I did the waist decreases and then realized it was still pretty boxy, but that would kind of taper it down. I don't know. It seemed fine to just leave it there. So I did. But yeah, it comes to high hip on me. I will try. I don't have any pictures yet of me wearing it. And I may not get any pictures before I upload this because uploading things quickly is kind of how I get it done. If I wait too long, then I'm like, oh, well, now it's not up, and then I never do it. So I will hopefully see if I can get some pictures of me wearing this today so I can add them on and you can see what it looks like. But yeah, really happy to have it. Really soft, really fuzzy. It's been a good layering piece. It is intended to be like a springtime jumper. The original was knit in a really soft dusky pink. But yeah, happy to have it. So happy to have it off my needles. That part is the best part, is knowing it's done. I like that almost more than I like actually wearing it, and I'm really enjoying actually wearing it. Having finished a jumper, I was finally able to cast on a new jumper because it's not like I spent all of lockdown buying sweater quantities of yarn only to, already have one on the needles and not be able to do it. So the next one, do I have the pattern with me? I think I took the instructions out and forgot to put them back. This is, I am using, let's start with the yarn. This is Nua, the sport weight version in the color Figment, which is looking really purpley here. In some lights, it looks a lot more navy. Even in person, it's looking really purpley. And I'm holding that in front of my face, so you probably cannot see what I'm saying if you need to read lips. It's looking really purpley in this light, but it often looks a bit more navy, so I guess it's kind of a really dark indigo. I bought some of this yarn for a project in one of the second year of the Confident Knitting series from AC Techniques. And it was to knit a brioche shawl. And I knew I wasn't going, like that wasn't a project I really wanted to do. So I bought some extra skeins to make, that was a brioche scarf, I said, right? So I bought extra skeins to knit a brioche shawl. Can't quite speak today. and I cast it on and I was working on it and it was fun, but I loved the yarn and I was kind of only okay about the shawl. I now feel like I need a few more shawls in my life because, we're going to sit outside on days like today and want to wrap up or take it off or wrap up or take it off in the northern-ish Scottish weather. But I loved the yarn and I didn't love the project. So I frogged it and then ordered even more yarn to make a jumper at some point. And I had my eye on one pattern by Carol Feller that's written for the Nihoul yarn. And then when I went, when I finished this one, I went to my cupboard of wool, which is just so much wool. You wouldn't even, and not even all the wool is in it. It's just so much. And it is mostly wool. I say wool advisedly. It's not yarn made of all sorts of things. It's mostly sheep's wool. I opened my cupboard of yarn and the Nihoul was the topmost sweater quantity of yarn that wasn't 4-ply or lighter, because I do not want another jumper that's going to take me almost 2 years to knit. I want to be able to knit something quickly and be able to wear it and have that rush. So I pulled up the Nihoul and then I pulled up the patterns that I had favorited to go with the yarn and or bought, and I wasn't feeling it. It was a cardigan, it had a shawl collar, it had lace. It's beautiful, it's gorgeous. I just don't see how it would fit into my wardrobe right now, which is a much more kind of relaxed and less structured. So yeah, I thought I will see what else is out there that's written for the Nihoul yarn. Because if it's written for the same yarn, then it's a 60% merino, 20% yak, 20% linen blend, which gives it a kind of unique handle for how it drapes and wears and stuff like that. So I had it down to a couple of other options, and I was strongly leaning towards the one I eventually cast on, and I went to buy it and realized I already owned it. So result, I already own the pattern, definitely the one I should be knitting. I was also looking at, like, from my gauge swatch, which things wouldn't require a lot of adjusting. Because once you find a gauge that works, you then change patterns to fit it. So this is what I have so far. Ooh, one of the stitches is trying to slide off the end. And this is upside down. So this is the back. And it has... Where are you? Unroll. Just the tiniest bit of shoulder and neck shaping. And this is going to be the Blueprint Pullover by, I think it's Paper Moon Knits. It might be Paper Lantern Knits. I will put the designer's name and the information. I'm absolutely certain she's one of the designers in the US who's really big, and the fact that I have no idea who she is an embarrassment to me. I am not embarrassed. I don't make any pretension of following big designers or anything. The people I follow all tend to be like UK or really interesting, or Carol Feller's Irish, but I'll put her in the interesting category. But I follow people because I'm interested in them, not because I think they're amazing designers, and it helps if they make designs I like, but interesting person is more important to me than amazing designs. What was I saying? So yeah, I've got this started. I actually had to order new needles and then wait. Look, they're black needles with metal tips. I do love these, the carbons. They're strong, they're light. You get all the advantages of metal tips, but the carbon is much nicer to hold on to than metal needles, I find. And yeah, I've just joined my second ball. I had to order new needles because I was knitting this in like 12-inch circulars, which wasn't the easiest for actually knitting, which probably means my gauge is now completely changed. Anyway, it'll be fine. It's an oversized kind of swing pullover. I will knit a fair amount and then I'll block it out again and see how I'm going. Probably when I need to set this aside to cast on the front part. Ooh, is it joined up? when I am done with the back part and I'm ready to start the front part, I can throw it in the sink and give it a quick wash and then measure it to see how it is. And that'll be fine. We're living dangerously here, right? Moving on to my second finished object. I have finished, I don't know if you noticed it behind me here, my Bonhommie shawl by Sarah Hatton, which I've been trying to work on for the last couple of episodes. Ta-da! This is another one that's kind of that indigo color. This is a lighter, brighter one, but it is, in some lights, it's very purple, and in other lights, it's very like a royal blue, a Scottish flag blue. That is the wrong side I'm showing you. Not that it really matters. And this is the Bonhommie shawl by Sarah Hatton. It came out in 2020, the Something to Knit Together series. That was summer, or volume 1 summer, by Arnold Colorford Techniques again. In their yarn, Something to Knit With 4-ply, which is a merino alpaca blend. I don't remember what the color is called. It doesn't really matter because it has been discontinued. But it is a nice yarn. It's very drapey. I was looking at it, I'm like, why do I see purl stitches again? Because there's moss stitch patterns. It is like 8 feet long. Shoop. 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 It is really, really long. It is going to be amazing for wrapping around when I'm outside on patios having lunch, because that's where I intend to have lunch, not inside if I can help it. Yay, getting a little warmer. And it's a gorgeous color, and it was fun to knit, and I don't know why it took me so very, very long to knit it, except I knit the center triangle, then knit one side, washed and pinned it out and blocked it, and then it just languished for ages until I finally picked it up and finished it. I have it off the needles. That's a good feeling, you. And I have worn it occasionally. It is a lot of shawl, and it just wraps around really nicely, and the color is a really nice one. So I'm very happy to have that finished. And yeah, very excited about that. Having finished one shawl from Deep Stash in my cupboard, I picked up another shawl. And this is I think it's Busy Pottering. Uh-oh. I hope I didn't get that wrong. Yes. Busy Pottering bag, which I won in a giveaway, I believe, from Laura of the Lonely Knitter. And it has the names of English beach towns. I will admit my knowledge of English geography is vague at best. Let's go with vague. And in here I have almost half of a Fika shawl by Karie Westermann. This is the right size. It does not look like much because it is a jumbled up mess, which is what lace is before you stretch it out. It has kind of a little flower or cat paw lace pattern in a big increasing triangle, and then it'll have a large border across the bottom, and it's meant to be the kind of thing that you just love to snuggle up and be cozy in at all times. This is also on the same size needle as my new jumper, which is why I had to order new needles because my needles are in other things. But needles are easy, right? I cannot pronounce the yarn, so I will hold up the label. This is a Finnish yarn. It is, I think, 2-ply lace weight, pure new wool, and does it say 100 grams, 400 meters, which sounds like 4-ply to me, but I think this is lace weight. I mean, knitting with it, it is definitely lace weight. I'm doing the holding things in front of my mouth thing again, aren't I? But yeah, Finnish wool, very nice. A bit burgundy. I bought this at one of the EYFs, specifically to knit this shawl. It is the suggested yarn. I think I got it from Midwinter Yarns. And in the haul, I think I thought this was just a little bit more blue toned and a little less orange toned. So it's just a tad rustier of a red than I would ideally like. So I go back and forth on whether or not this is a project I want to keep for me or one I want to give away. Either way, it is, I mean, it's actually fun to knit. And again, I don't know why I set it aside for so long, but that is a thing that happens, right? You start something and then you get distracted by something else and you run off and knit it. I think I started this in 2018 or 2019. I know the pattern came out before that, maybe 2016. Is that something was moving around outside? And I cast it on, and then I was trying to do some modifications to make it basically a completely different shawl, and it wasn't working out. Like, I did that, and then I wasn't working on it for a while, and then I had no idea where I was in it, so I just wound up frogging it, and now I'm following the pattern as written. So yeah, that's the next thing. I need to clear off my needles, and then I can pick something from the cupboard again. And I have one more finished object, which I have finished since the last time we spoke, because kind of while I was trying to record this last week, I realized I was really close to done, and if I just sat down and worked on these, they would in fact be finished. Ta-da! 2 socks, heels, toes, cuffs, everything but washing them and weaving in the ends. I've done my shaped toes, so they look like my feet a little bit. I did a short row garter stitch heel with just a tiny little gusset increase. I didn't decrease those stitches away because then going up the back of the leg, I did a few increases to give a bit more space to make these a bit taller. I have not worn these yet. This yarn is the Doubly Reliable Sock Base from Ripples Crafts in the colorway New Dye Shed, which has got to be like 5 years old at this point. It might only have been 2018, but the New Dye Shed is not all that new anymore. But the dye shed is gray with purple trim, so this yarn looks very much like it is supposed to. And I'm really happy to have these off the needles. I started them back in, I think, February, when we were going up to Aviemore for our little midwinter break, where we spent almost a week in Aviemore. And it snowed right before we went up there, and then the snow all melted. But yeah, we got a little snow and a lot of fun and swimming and stuff like that. So it was a good trip. And now I have a pair of warm socks. As you can see, I might not need them, but my toes are really cold, so maybe I will. I could have worn them yesterday, but I hadn't taken the pins out of them yet. And I thought, I will just wait. I was in a hurry to get ready and go in the morning, so I didn't have time to like sit down and pull bulb pins out of my socks. But I thought, I will just wait. What all do I have in this bag? Random things wind up in the bottom of my sock sacks. This one is a little gray girl bag that I picked up at Glasgow School of Yarn. I love the bright colors and the fact that it's a little extra big, because DK weight socks are a little extra big too. But yeah, somehow random things always wind up in my sock bags, and that's because they're my take out with you projects. Someone in the woods is calling. I live by the woods. And they're starting to have leaves on them, so they don't look, you know, like all skeletal and grim and dreek. But yeah, their socks tend to be my out and about projects, and then my kids give me things, or I take things away from my kids, and they wind up in the sock sacks, and then I walk around going, why is this so heavy, and why does it rattle? Although when I was my other sock sack, my replacement project, this is one I made, does still rattle because it has a little notions tin in the bottom. But not only did it have a whole bunch of toys in it, but that's where my other inhaler was. I was looking for it everywhere this weekend, or this past week, and I couldn't find it. Because I have I mean, I have my everyday inhaler, and those live in my medicine cupboard, so that in the morning before I brush my teeth, I do that. And then if I need to, like in the winter, and I do it twice a day, at night when I brush my teeth, I can do it. So that and the spares live in there. And then I have my rescue inhalers that I carry around with me, and one of them lives on the dresser in my bedroom and is also the one I take on runs, because then when I'm getting dressed in the morning, I just stick it in my running trouser pocket. They've got little pockets. Phone goes on one side, a hanky and an inhaler go on the other side, because cold air makes my nose run. So I knew where that one. Then when I come home and I take my, change out of my sweaty clothes, the inhaler goes back on the dresser. Everything else goes in the laundry except my phone, which obviously doesn't. I knew I had a second inhaler and I couldn't find it. It wasn't in any of my handbags. It wasn't in the pocket of any of my coats. And I wanted to take it in my bicycle and put it in like the little bag I had. Anyway, I couldn't find it. It was in my sock sack, because this is the one I took with us when we were going out for the Easter holiday activities I'd booked. I was carrying this sock sack around. So I threw my inhaler in there in case I needed it, which makes a lot of sense, except for the fact that I completely forgot it was in there. Yeah, so really happy to have that back. And I can probably show you the sock that is living in there, which is, here we go. I have turned the heel. Look at this. Look, do you see the stripes just keep going? Even though I did a heel flap and gusset, I did not do any yarn bossing. It came down. The last color before the heel turn was pink. And then we came down to the heel and I just made it to pink. And look, there is one little line of pink joined up back here. And then we're back to the green again. Pink to green, pink to green, pink to green. How amazing is that? That never happens. This is West Yorkshire Spinners, their Christmas color from this past year, which is vintage tinsel. I am actually back to being mad at West Yorkshire Spinners because a pair of socks I knit last year that I was working on over the summer, I think. I feel like they were the ones I was knitting on when the girls were doing gymnastics last summer, the 1 week of gymnastics that I had them in. And I had to just sit outside and wait for them to be done because it was far enough away from home that I couldn't walk home and come back in time, but there was nothing to do. Anyway, when I was just sitting outside, I was knitting on those socks. So that would have been end of June, early July. And I was wearing them yesterday or the day before. I took them off. It was 2 days ago. I took them off and there's a big hole under the toe, which isn't even where I normally put holes in socks. But anyway, I will probably just cut off the whole toe and re-knit it then, because that seems easier. I mean, I could darn it, but it's a toe, so cut it off, re-knit it, be done, and not worry about matching up the stripes. That one I did yarn boss to make sure the stripes carried through. But yeah, maybe I'll have that to show next time, because actually darning socks and being able to use them again is one of my goals for things to do with my life. One last project, which is a little crochet one. Where did I put it? Where did I put it? I put a sock sack in front of it. The last project I have to show you is, oh my goodness, this adorable cat. It's a little too bright. Let's see if I can give you a little bit of a shade. Look at this cat. I am just dying. It is so cute. And it's got a little spot on its tail too. And a pink bow and a pink nose. And you can see it's got like whiskers and eyebrows. Yeah, you really can't see it. It's too bright. But it is forkin' adorable. It is possibly the cutest thing I have ever made in my entire life. And it is the first thing I've made from the Mini Kingdom book that I believe I showed you last time. And that is by Olka Novystka. It is a Ukrainian name, and I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce it. Iradiatois. She is still a refugee. She left the first day that Russia invaded Ukraine and started bombing them. Over 2 months later, Russia is still bombing the Ukraine. This is still a problem, and other countries still need to protect Ukraine, and I don't know why. I mean, I know the reasons they say we're not, but I honestly don't know why we're not helping, or at least saying, you know, you can't bomb, like you're clearly bombing civilian targets and targeting children and families and refugees. So yeah, still really upset about that. Can be happy about knitting, can also be sad about the horrible things that are happening to Ukraine and Ukrainians. Having knit the cat, no, not knit, having crocheted the cat, see how smoothly that segue was? I have cast on the unicorn, which is for, the cat was for my 9-year-old, the unicorn is for the 5-year-old. I was working on it, which project bag? Another sock sack. So Beautiful by Nicola. Ta-da! This one came with a ladybug stitch marker, but I don't know what I have done with it. I was working on this more before my children were home all the time. I have so far made a mushroom. It'll get a snout. I've done one arm, so it needs another arm. It needs a tail. It needs ears and a horn and a beautiful rainbow mane. But I have made the mushroom. And one little arm. It will also be the cutest little thing I have ever made in my entire life. And hopefully Olka Novystka can get back to designing cute things again and not just trying to survive. And yeah, that would be really good. That's kind of, yeah, no, that's all the things I have to show you that are finished and ready to go. I am wearing these mitts, so I will mention this is a pattern by Carol Feller from Celtic Knits, which I think was her first book. I knit it in Malabrigo sock and like an aubergine color. Do not use Malabrigo sock to make socks. It is really, really soft and it would never hold up to any kind of wear in socks or in shoes or, you know, like on feet. So Malabrigo sock is a gorgeous, beautiful yarn that should not be used for socks. And then I only brought just one purchase, which is 2 skeins of yarn. And these are from Rusty Ferret. This one is a DK, a superwash merino, 80% superwash merino, 20% bamboo, 225 meters for 100 grams. So this is a DK weight, and it is like a natural creamy color and then lots of different colored speckles, which aren't really showing up the best. And then this one is a more standard sock, 75% superwash, 25% merino. Again, this one is there's some cream bits. Can you see the cream bits? But it's also a lot of like this peachy pink. You can't see the peachy pink and the dark speckles. LJ was having a moving sale, so I bought a few things from her. And you'll remember back at Christmas, I bought and gave my husband to give me for Christmas this, which is Kids Rainbow. This one is Light Dancer. This one is Atypical. And I haven't used it yet, but looking at it makes me so very happy. And also being a grown-up who can buy their own Christmas presents also makes me happy. I know it's not for everyone, but it makes me happy because then you get what you want. And they did come with some cute little sparkly stitch markers. This one I have plans for, which is back in the autumn when Nursery in the Woods, Rainbow, we need to call her Rainbow. When Rainbow had Nursery in the Woods, I knit this hat for her because this is a beloved bottom bonnet by Tin Can Knits, and it has little ear flaps and it ties under the chin, and I figured it was a bright color. This is also from Glasgow School of Yarn this last year. Another Ripples Crafts color. I don't remember what that was called. I've almost got it. I feel like it started with an F. But it's pink and bright yellow, and I figured it would help her be visible and hard to lose. And then, having knit it, I realized it would also be a good hat to wear under a bike helmet, which my friend and her child do a lot of biking. In the colder months, they do a lot of wearing hats under their bike helmets, and this would be a good one because it's a small, close-fitted shape. You can tie it under your chin to keep it down around your cheeks warm, and I had used ever so slightly less than half a skein, so I knit another one and gave it to her for Christmas. Now that we are riding bikes again, which is, for the life stuff, I'm now riding bikes around more. Rainbow has seen how wonderful and useful they are under your helmet when you are on a bike. She did not particularly care for wearing it. She doesn't really like any hats. She says they're all itchy, so I bought her a hat for Christmas that is like a cotton band that goes around all the places where it touches the skin. And she's still just like, no, don't really want to wear it. Which, that's kids. That's fine. But I bought this yarn to knit one either for me or for my friend. I haven't really decided. I kind of love it. Not all the colors are really me. But, it's fun. And I do have another skein, which again isn't quite, I don't know. I have 2 skeins of DK yarn that are specified for hats, and I'll make one for me and I'll make one for my friend, and then we will have close-fitting hats that can tie under your chin and keep your ears warm when you're riding a bicycle, just in time for it to be warm and sunny. Although, who has any idea how long that will take me? We are clearly showing that some projects take years, even when they shouldn't. And then these 2 are just gorgeous. Don't know what to do with them other than just sit there and pet them. They're so pretty. You can't see how pretty this one is because it's completely blown out, but you may just have to take my word for it that there are lots of gorgeous colors. You're mostly seeing the pinks. There are like greens and purples and blues and look, blues. See, blue. You can't see how pretty that blue is. Just pet it. Some yarn is for admiring. Some yarn is for knitting right away. I was watching Yarn Harlot's Patreon a while back when she did a yarn toss. She went through her stash, opened everything up, made sure there were no moths, and she said, every single skein of yarn in my stash, in her stash, when it was bought, was with the expectation that it would be the next thing cast on. Like, this yarn was coming in to be knit immediately. And now she has an enormous stash. And I really felt that because every skein of yarn comes in the expectation that it'll be knit up immediately. But some things are just so pretty. You want to put them in a bowl and stick them on the shelf next to your bed, which is probably why I have a bowl next to my bed that is absolutely just overflowing with yarn, and you can't even see all the beautiful things in it. But I know every single skein of yarn in that bowl is the most gorgeous skein of yarn that has ever been created, ever been dyed, ever been purchased. Every single skein of yarn is the most beautiful one in the whole world. So yeah, I have told you about this because I do want to cast it on right away and make warm hats. And I just need a quick little break and I will be back in a minute. Maybe I can clear some of this away. I hit the play button and then realized I didn't know how to start it, because normally like, oh, I'm sorry that, sorry for that interruption or whatever. But for you, obviously, it wasn't an interruption at all. So who knows what I think I'm doing. I did have a couple of cups of tea right before I sat down to do this. And my cups of tea are big. So I just had to nip off to the Wee Lassies group, the Wee Lassies room, before we continued. It is feeling it's a bit warmer in here. Maybe it's just because the rest of the house is a bit colder, but it's feeling a bit warmer, even though my hands are now cold because I just washed them. I think I can take my mitts off and do a little knitting while we have a natter. So this is where we're moving into life stuff, which, hey, maybe I could turn that whole like disappearing thing into this is a segue, and if you don't want to hear me blather on for ages about what's been going on, because I feel like a lot has been going on, but I don't know how much it actually is. I have filled a page in my little show notes book. This is episode 77. You can't see that, but this is episode 77. Some pages already have art in it. That's an ice cream cone. I just saw Libby walking around outside. Libby is one of our cats. In fact, from the way I'm planning to put this together, she would have been the cat sat on the sofa last time when I was trying to record this. She was sat on the back of the sofa, and I recorded a little video of her sat there. Not that a video of a cat sleeping on the back of a sofa is a very exciting video, but I thought it would make a good opening one. I have completely lost the plot, haven't I? So, life news since the last update. We have passed solstice. We're into the longer hours of the day part. Sorry, I had a wee frog in my throat, and I thought I would just open the door to the conservatory a little bit, so if Libby comes, she can come join us. Yeah, we've passed spring solstice, so the days are now longer than the nights, and it very, very quickly gets to the point, we're already way past the point where the sun sets after the kids go to bed and comes up before they get up. I checked the other day, and the sun, I can just pull this information up. Right now, where I live, this morning, sunrise was at 5:37 and sunset will be at 8:54. So we do not get up before 6 o'clock, and we do not stay up past 8 o'clock, or at least the kids aren't supposed to. They're supposed to like start bedtime at 6:30. But yeah, it's still fully bright, and the kids are like, how on earth would I ever go to sleep? And so they kind of haven't. And Rainbow, the 5-year-old in particular, has been trying to stay up to like 10 o'clock some nights. And that is part of why I am so very tired, because that is a lot of hours to be mom, especially because, as I will point out, we have had 4 weeks of the kids home with me. And then this past week, I didn't get a rest day until, Friday was a half day for school, for Rainbow. She's in nursery, so she does some half days. I didn't get a rest day last week either. Wednesday maybe kind of sort of was, but Wednesday was the day I was trying to record my podcast, and my brain was not fired. Not only was it not firing on all cylinders, I'm not entirely sure it was firing on any. It was just an absolute, I should have just taken a nap and been done with it. But I was like, I haven't podcasted in ages. I really, really, really want to do this. I want to sit down and talk with my friends, even if, you're all imaginary. Hi, imaginary friends. It's okay. I know that I'm an imaginary friend for other people too. But yeah, so the nights are now bright and everything. And since last we spoke, the first thing was that we had a day when the power was browning out in most of the house, and that for extra fun, that included the doorbell. So every time the power came, like the power dropped and then came back up, the doorbell rang, and this had started like an hour before we normally get up in the morning. And yeah, So that was exciting. So we got an electrician to come out and look at it. And I'm from a big place. I'm from the Silicon Valley, and then I moved to the SF Bay Area in general. And you can play It's a Small World there, but it's, I don't know, like you really kind of have to work at it and be in sympathetic circles to be able to play It's a Small World and how you know people in common. There's this thing here in Inverness where if you introduce any two Invernessians or, you know, native Scottish people, they will spend about 2 to 5 minutes and work out that one of them went to school with the other one's cousin, and their next door neighbor works with the other one's mum, and, you know, like 7 points of contact of how they almost know each other, but they know all these people. Oh yeah, no, I know that. It's just this amazing thing that Invernessians can do. And I can now do it a little bit. I've been here long enough, I can do it a little bit, specifically if it involves some kind of toddler group or other interaction through children. Anyway, this is to say that our electrician was the best man at the wedding of the neighbors who used to live at the house behind us. They moved just this last summer. So he showed up and he's like, hey, I was the best man at their wedding. And we're like, oh, I liked them as neighbors. I did. I really liked them as neighbors. I have no particular opinion on the people who have moved in because we haven't particularly interacted with them at all. They haven't been a problem in any way, shape, or form. We just, you know, haven't interacted. Whereas the couple who lived there before, they were really sweet kids. Anyway, our electrician took a look around and said with the browning out, it might be mice nibbling on, or, you know, some other kind of insect activity nibbling on the wires. And then if they're brushing past it, it would drop and raise the connection. So we might have to go through the whole house to find out and test the things. And he's like, let me just pop the fuse board and have a look. It turns out one of our fuses, instead of tripping, had melted that portion of the fuse box. Our fuse box was plastic. We now have a very fancy fuse box that is not plastic and will not melt. But yeah, that was exciting. He was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you called me. We need to just, you know, like pull out the fuses and turn off the electricity to the house. And he had a bunch of stuff coming up, so it would be a week until he could come back and go through the house top to bottom and make sure everything was okay. And that's about how long it would take for the new fuse box to arrive. He was recommending he's like, you know, when he does new builds, he recommends this kind of top of the line fuse box. We're like, we'll get it. That's fine. You know, we're okay with top of the line fuse boxes that aren't going to melt. That's because the fuse box we had was very much the bargain variety, which is not something that fills you with joy. Anyway, so for a week, we didn't have power in the house. The overhead lights worked. The conservatory outlets worked, and the kitchen worked. And the rest of the house had no electricity for a week. And, you know, this gets even more exciting because that was a Friday that he came out and, you know, disconnected our electricity so we didn't have more problems. On the Tuesday, my 9-year-old tested positive for COVID, which was not particularly shocking because basically her entire table at school, almost all of them were out with COVID already at that point. And then with her being added to the numbers, there were enough kids with COVID that they actually had to like cancel the whole class, switch them all to home learning, and you know, make sure everyone tested before they could open the class again a few days later. That was lots of fun. Poor kid, she came in, it was a Tuesday morning, and she came in at, you know, like an hour before she normally wakes up and told me she had a really bad headache, which she had mentioned was her best friend who sits at the same table's symptom, when she had gone home early in the morning the week before. One day she came to school and then, less than an hour later had to go home because she had a really bad headache. And then the mom texted me that weekend to say that her results had come back and she had COVID. So when she came in and said she had a headache, I was like, that's it. Yeah, that's going to be it. So we tested her, and sure enough, like the lateral flow tests say, depending on the test, 15 minutes to half an hour, and you may not see the line until the last minute, and it may be really faint. Like as soon as we dropped the stuff in, a minute later, there was 2 bright red lines. I'm like, okay, we will order some PCR tests, because here in the UK, one of the ways they're pretending that coronavirus is over is that if you fail a lateral flow test, if you get a positive result, then you officially have COVID. You don't have to do a PCR test. But they're only counting PCR tests for the number of people who have tested positive for coronavirus. And then in the time since then, they have also stopped giving out the lateral flow test for free. So I don't know. That's a different rant for another day. Though it is very near and dear to my heart. Fortunately, here in Scotland, we had an extra couple of weeks because I went through so many lateral flow tests in the 2 weeks when my kids were home with COVID. So that was Tuesday. So I called her out, ordered PCR tests for everyone. We all did lateral flow tests. Everyone else was still negative. And then the PCR showed up on Thursday. We don't drive, so we can't go to a test center. I had to have them posted to us. And I got them posted back that night. And I did a lateral flow test for myself and Rainbow, the little one, the same day. And they were both negative, except when they finally came back, the PCR results the next day, tested positive. So I switched her from being home because her sibling has COVID to home with COVID. But she did, but she hadn't been to school for a couple of days at that point. So the risk of her having given it to other people was much lower. But that first day for Christina, she was so poorly. Like she'd crawled into bed with me first thing in the morning and was, curled up, breathing straight into my face. And then as she got fevers and chills and had a really rough 24 hours. And she basically just wanted to spend the whole time cuddled up with me. She wanted to sleep with me that night. So we put Rainbow in what will be her bedroom, but for now is still mostly the sofa bedroom, i.e. our guest room, with a fold-out sofa. And Chris had to do bedtime with her. And, so the older one slept in my bed, breathing in my face all night. And then the next morning, she was largely a lot better. And then that night, she wanted to sleep, but I was like, no, because the chances of you giving me COVID are really high, and I'd really rather not get COVID. And she was like, but then why did you let me yesterday? And I'm like, well, because you were really poorly, and when you're really poorly, that changes the math on the risk. Like, okay, I have to risk it more because my baby needs me. But I apparently didn't get it. Lateral flows and PCRs say I was fine. Rainbow got it, and she sleeps with me all the time anyway. I haven't managed. I was so good when she was a baby. I didn't want her co-sleeping with me. I didn't want to hit the point where suddenly I had to ask her not to co-sleep with me anymore to be, for that to be a problem. And then we lost it all shortly before the pandemic, and now I'm having trouble shifting her out of the room. But hopefully that will come. Anyway, eventually the older one tested negative and was able to go back to school for just a couple days before Easter break. But the little one, Rainbow, did not make it back. She was testing positive. You need 2 negative tests to leave isolation early. And she was still testing positive 2 days before, so she couldn't get the 2 tests to go back to nursery. She never had any symptoms. She coughed a little, but she always coughs a little because, like me, we think she has asthma. So I was home for 2 weeks with the kids for that. after 1 week, we did eventually get the electricity back, which was nice because I was charging like people's iPads in rotation in the kitchen. And I'd do silly things too. Like I knew the electricity didn't work and nothing worked, and then I would plug my watch to charge while I took a shower and then be surprised it hadn't been charged. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, I need to move that to the kitchen as well. The one outlet we were using in the kitchen. And yeah, so that was festive. And it has been a bit of an interlude again here. I had a lunch break and oh my goodness, it is so warm in the conservatory now. It is just lovely. I can feel the heat soaking into my bones and the blackbirds singing. And for a delicate Mediterranean flower like me, it's really nice sometimes to just feel a dry heat soak into your bones. Not something I get a whole heck of a lot of, especially now that, anyway, we don't need a heating and electricity hikes diatribe in the middle of our knitting podcast. Anyway, so the electricity was out. My kids had COVID. Several rooms in our house are supplement heated by radiators. Not like wall radiators, but electric radiators, and electric blankets in some of the beds. Not my bed, but the other beds have electric blankets. So we couldn't use those when the power was out. Fortunately, it was a fairly warm week, but at night there were sometimes it was a bit chilly and we all had to resort to hot water bottles. Yeah, so our electrician was finally able to come back, and the kids and I stayed here in the conservatory, in the windows and the rest of the house. I had them open all day and, wiped down surfaces and doorknobs and all that sort of thing. And we did warn him we were isolating, obviously. That wouldn't have been cool. But the kids mostly were out on the trampoline. The older one only had the one day when she was particularly poorly, and she said it hurt to turn her head the second day. And the other one, no symptoms whatsoever. And fortunately, they were both over it for Easter holidays because I had signed up for a bunch of activities that the first week there were activities on. They did not tire my children out. My plan was to tire them out. They'd been stuck home for the better part of 2 weeks, and I really wanted them to just run around a bunch. I'm sorry, I can feel a little frog in my throat now, and I don't know why it's there or how to get rid of it. I tried clearing my throat and a whole bunch of water, so hopefully that will help. My operation to tire them out was, I was only able to get the older one into a trampolining class. And then they both had swimming lessons. But the swimming lessons, it was half an hour for one swimming lesson, then a half an hour break in the middle, and then half an hour for the other swimming lesson. And so while the older one was swimming, the younger one and I swam, and then the three of us swam together. And then while the younger one had her swimming lesson, the older one and I swam. So they got 90 minutes of swimming. Plus most days, the older one had trampolining first. And then we went to the floral hall, which is right in the same area as the swimming pool, and had lunch. And pet Shadow the cat, who very unfortunately is mostly blind at this point. And my older one is just absolutely devastated. She loves cats, and we've known that cat since it first showed up mumbly years ago. 8 years ago, 7 years ago. We have loved this cat the whole time, so the fact that the cat is now old and possibly not going to live for much longer, my older one cried about that a whole bunch that week. Sorry, frog came back and an airplane flew overhead, and since I have the windows open to let in the bird song, it also lets in everything else as well. And then I was looking outside. I couldn't see the airplane, but I was looking outside, and the sky is clear and blue from horizon to horizon. There's not even a single wisp of cloud, which I think for most people is just a thing, but here in the UK, it's the kind of thing you take a picture of and share on social media because, oh my goodness, did you see there weren't any clouds in the sky? It's a very true thing that happens here. Where did that fork and frog come from? I was doing fine. I don't have a cold. I don't know. Life is unfair. Sometimes I wonder if I have allergies and possibly should get tested for that. So we did the swimming, we did the running around, and then after the swimming, we had lunch and then saw the cat and then came home. And both kids were like, oh, just some rest time for like an hour. And then they were up and running around again and bouncing off the little one. It was bouncing off the walls again. And I don't know, maybe I need to take them swimming after dinner as a before bedtime thing and then bring them home and just be like, just go lay down for a bit. But yeah. On the other hand, we did one regular swimming lesson with the little one last week. And my friend and I, she's got her kid in the same class, rode our bikes there together. She's got a cargo bike. So both kids went in the cargo bike and I had the other bike. And we rode our bikes there and we rode our bikes home. And little Rainbow was the one who was exhausted. And I'm like, I did, we did the work, not you were just riding. But I guess that was really tiring because she absolutely collapsed that evening and was just so tired and bursting into tears every 5 minutes the way that little kids do when they're really, really tired. So my attempts to wear my children out through swimming lessons may work. I just need to take them on long bike rides as well. Could be a thing, who knows? So that was the first week of Easter break. And then the second week of Easter break, Chris was able to take off and we hired a skip so that we could clear out our garage at long last. And we did. We filled so much stuff in. We got an 8 cubic meter skip, and when it showed up, it looked huge. But then when we looked at it against all the stuff in the garage, we were worried it wouldn't be big enough. Now I can hear the bins. Hold on. Okay, I went and got a cough lozenge and sucked on it for a little bit to hopefully lessen whatever this little tickle is in my throat that's coming for me. Because I don't want to be done talking yet. But that's the kind of thing that means you're done talking. So yeah, we emptied the garage and now there's so much room in there. And it also feels, we haven't gone through all of the boxes, but the boxes we have are now all on the shelves. And every time I go in there, I'm like, oh my goodness, there's so much room in here. And I immediately filled it with bicycles. And now I'm borrowing a bicycle trailer from my friend as well. So that's taking up a fair amount of space, but still it looks so, even there's so much room I could park it in. I had nothing but space. It all fits so well. This is what life is supposed to be like. Operation Clear Out the Garage is step 1 for reorganizing some of the inside of the house. Because as I mentioned, what is supposed to be Rainbow's bedroom is currently the sofa bedroom, which is a guest room with a convertible sofa bed in it. And because she was supposed to be in the other bedroom, except rewinding a bit, when I was pregnant with Rainbow and still doing bedtime with the older one, I kept falling asleep in her single bed with her. And then I'd wake up at 2 a.m. and my back would hurt and my hips would hurt and my arms would hurt and I was half frozen and half fallen out of the bed, and it was not a great situation. So I said, if we're going to fall asleep together, and apparently pregnancy narcolepsy meant I was going to be falling asleep with her, that we were at least going to do it in the big bed where we both fit. So Chris moved to what was going to be the nursery, and we got him his own single bed, which we were going to need for in there anyway. And yeah, and then after I had the baby, we had the baby in the room, and he wanted to stay in the other room still because he's a light sleeper, and baby's waking up in the middle of the night, that kind of stuff would make it hard for him to get up and go to work in the morning. We got the older one firmly sleeping in her own room and not coming in to see me in the middle of the night and all that kind of stuff. Did really well. I said, do you want to swap back? And you can have the big room and I'll sleep in the nursery with the baby while she gets bigger. And he said that no, he actually preferred sleeping at the front of the house because he couldn't hear. Our bedroom is really close the only neighbors that we share property line with 2 neighbors, but the neighbors behind our house, their driveway is right against the fence, and the fence is really close to the master bedroom, so you can hear them coming and going. And the previous neighbors, the ones I said were really sweet, the husband is a rugby player, so during lockdown he kitted the garage out to be like a small gym. They had a little detached garage, and he had it be a gym with all this like weightlifting equipment and bench pressing and all that kind of stuff, because he spent, I don't know, 8 hours a day working out. And the thing Chris didn't like working in his office is that when he was doing the big bar with the weights, you go and drop it, and then like the whole ground would shake, and that always startled Chris, because the whole ground shook, and it made a big loud noise, as to be expected. And so Chris was like, yay, they're moving out, I don't have to hear that anymore. Well, it turns out the people who moved in, one of the things they liked about the place is that it was kitted out for a home gym. So they have set up a home gym, including a big barbell, except they work out before they go to work in the morning. So they're doing their workouts at like 5:30, 7 in the morning. So he doesn't want to go back to that side of the house. And also, it turns out the bedroom has a lot of little blinky lights and stuff, including security alarm, carbon monoxide detector, smoke detector, and we've put black like spike tape over the blinky light part, but you can still see it through the tape, it's just muffled. So he's decided he wants to stay in that front room. So we have to make the sofa bedroom be for Rainbow, and that was otherwise supposed to be my craft room. So we've moved all my craft stuff, not all of my craft stuff, not really, most of my craft stuff into the big bedroom, and I got a smaller bed so that there'd be more room for crafty stuff. And since I don't want my kids sleeping in there, then, I don't need a huge bed for lots of people to sleep in. And now that we've got the garage empty, we can move some of the things that aren't, Rainbow bedroom furniture out of the room and set it up as a bedroom for her. Except Chris was saying he wanted to get a bigger bed than the single, move up to a double, and reorganize his room that way. But now he's decided, and then it was going to be like a chain thing where then his old bed went to the older one, and then her bed went to the younger one, and then he decided he wants to get back into composing music, which he used to do, but he doesn't feel he can do it in the public parts of the house, more because of the cats than the kids. The cats both love him so much. Like if he's around, they both want to just rub themselves all over him and sit on him and, be babied. And the cats just love him. So instead of getting a bigger bed, he's ordering like special desks set up and various things. So we ordered the older one has a lofted bed. So she wants like a regular normal bed, and some new things for her room, a new dresser and that kind of stuff. And then the lofted up bed set will go to the little one, and stuff will have to move out of there. So it's this whole long chain of things, but we were finally able to start ordering things, which should hopefully come in another couple of weeks. Yay Brexit, yay pandemic. So yeah, that's a big long thing, but hopefully at some point soon, the little one will have her own bed in her own bedroom, and she will actually agree to sleep in there, because our previous attempts to get her to sleep like on the sofa bed have not gone well. They pretty much always end with her waking up in the middle of the night, realizing she's alone and starting to scream, which included the time her sister has gone in there and slept with her. She woke up in the middle of the night, knew her sister was there and she wasn't alone, and still just sat in bed and screamed until I came and got her, which I mean, the older one slept right through it. So as far as that goes, that wasn't a problem. But yeah, she does very much want her own room and her own furniture and everything. We just need to get it set up. And then hopefully I can be a grown-up in a grown-up room and not a co-sleeper in a mom room. And anyway, that will be nice. Other things. I've now got the lozenge in my mouth to keep me from, and I'm trying not to drool because talking without a cough lozenge rattling around your mouth and doing other things is not working well for me. I'm just checking my notes. I have fortunately been able to get back into running. I think not running was one of the hardest parts of having my kids home all the time. And then I realized on the Friday of the week that Chris took off that actually he was there. I could just go for a run. So I did the one Friday I got to go for a run. I am so rusty for talking to people. It is not even funny. Mother's Day happened somewhere in there. The UK Mothering Sunday is sometime before Easter. And it was right in the middle of us all being in lockdown. So like the kids had made cards for me at school. They couldn't get them from school. They were still at school. And then they each made their own card for me at home, except the little one copied the big one. So the big one had a big crying fit and wouldn't let me have it. But I eventually found the original card and snuck it off and kept it because they're both just so cute. Both the original one and the replacement one is a sad strawberry. So my Mother's Day card is a sad strawberry. But it's a really cute sad strawberry. But yeah, I've got back into running again and I have just finished week 5. I actually started back in, for those of you who've been watching for a while, I started back in August when the kids went to school. I started the Couch to 5K program, just doing the NHS app one. And I was doing really, really well, just running the days the kids were at school. And then I got a chest infection that took about 3 months to clear up, or it took 2 months to clear up. And then it was so cold I couldn't run outside because I have cold and exercise triggered asthma. So exercising in the cold is basically a thing I cannot do, especially when I was just getting over a chest infection. So since it warmed up a tiny bit and the kids went back to school, I've been able to do like 2 weeks, and then for some reason I wouldn't be able to run for a week. And then I repeated one of the weeks and did another week, and then I wouldn't be able to run for a week. I have finally made it up to week 5. I've just finished week 5, which starts with the first 4 weeks you repeat one run 3 times, and then week 5 you do 3 different runs. And the first run is 3 5-minute runs. The second day is 2 8-minute runs, and then the third day is 1 20-minute day. So that's what I did today. And I'm not gonna lie, going from 3 5-minute runs at the beginning of the week to 1 20-minute run at the end of the week is a big jump. So my legs are a bit tingly right now. Although most of that I think is because on my rest days, you're supposed to run one day and then rest one day. On my rest days, I've been doing these bicycle rides. And it's an electric bicycle I'm borrowing. I borrowed an electric bicycle, but my pride makes me want to do mostly the bicycling and not the electric part pushing you. I mean, even with the electric part pushing you, you're still pedaling and everything. And even just the round and round motion is muscles that I don't particularly have built up. But on my rest days, I've been doing the bicycling, and so my body is still just like, what are you doing? But I was thinking between the running, the bicycling, and the swimming, I'm practically training for a triathlon. They're not at all training for a triathlon, but that may be a goal for future days. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and I'm getting to hang out with a friend with our kids when we do the swimming. And then we got to hang out just the 2 of us, which was the first time I had been alone for more than 3 hours. I think last week I was only alone for 3 hours. I probably wasn't even alone for 3 hours. In 5 weeks. and getting to do that with a friend was so nice, except I had slept really badly the night before. So we went to the garden center to buy some plants, and I got there and I'm like, I cannot put my head together enough to figure out, like, this was my idea. I suggested this destination for this cause, and I can't buy plants because my brain just isn't there. But yeah, hopefully it's warming up. I've got tulips. Chris bought those for me. He went for a walk over the weekend and brought me home tulips, and I love them. And those vases also have carnations in them, but I don't think you can see them. And they're such pretty tulips. And the daffodils outside are all blooming. Our tulips are only just starting to come up. Tulips at the other end of the street are blooming. I'm now looking at my sock and wondering, I mean, it's probably toe decrease time, right? So yeah, the garden is starting to think awake thoughts, and I'm starting to think putting things in the garden thoughts. I can't really start seedlings because I don't have anywhere flat to lay plants that is going to keep them above freezing. Maybe we can get like little heated propagators and put them in the garage when we get the garage a little more sorted out. That is a good idea, because that would definitely work, because they don't need light to start seeds. You just need warmth. Heard it here first. Had a good idea. Possibly a good idea. It was an idea. Could be a good one. We will find out. I think that's about all I have for now. I mean, the only other thing is I've kind of, in the last couple of weeks, realized just how lonely I am, and how, you know, like in lockdown, everybody was lonely and it was all online, and that was fine. But I realized, thinking about it just these last couple of days, part of it is with Elon Musk buying Twitter, and everybody's like, let's leave Twitter. I signed up for mastodon.scot, and I'm really liking it there. I mean, it's not too busy yet. It's a really small instance. What do they call them? Like servers, but it's a really small part of Mastodon. So it seems like you can actually meet new people and have fun there in a way that Twitter has not been fun in years. Like, Twitter is where you go to find out all the bad things that happened overnight while you were asleep, and, you know, worry about all the terrible things going on in the world. Twitter hasn't been a fun, playful place to be in a long time. And like, I don't really have social groups. I stopped working a number of years ago because with the baby not in daycare, I couldn't be flexible with my hours, but if I did put her in daycare or nursery, it would cost basically the same as my salary. My husband and I weren't seeing each other. I still couldn't be flexible with like my time. All of, you know, it would still be like when I was working, he'd be watching the baby, except if I put her in nursery, he wasn't watching the baby. It just like, it completely didn't work out. So I quit my job. Rainbow's a 1.5 years old. And so I don't have socialness that way, which was supposed to end when the pandemic started. So I haven't gone back to work since then because pandemic and needing to be home with the kids at a moment's notice and all that sort of thing. And I had done some dancing when I first moved here, but then it was the same night as knit night, so I picked knit night over it. And that was working really well when the older one was a baby, because she would go and like I could just give her, and a toddler, I could give her some toys and she kind of just play in the seat next to me or under the table, or whereas Rainbow is a bit of a firecracker, and she's very running around and jumpy and loud and wanting lots of attention. And if you're like, I always worried when she was a baby that like you'd blink and somehow she'd have made it up the stairs and be dangling off the balcony. The knitting night meets at the local community theater. I mean, it's a professional theater, but local community arts center. And I mean, you can't relax around when she's around. And then lockdown, and I wasn't able to go, and now the mask policy's been lifted, and I don't particularly want to be part of that anyway in an enclosed space with, I mean, if it was just like us meeting in a cafe, it would be a smaller space. But since it is in the community art center, whatever shows they have on or movies they're showing or, presentations going on, there's lots of people in and out. You don't really want to be breathing the same air as potentially hundreds, if not thousands of strangers. So I don't do that anymore. I don't really have internet community because Ravelry kind of imploded and nothing's really felt very home since then. Twitter doesn't feel like home. So I don't know. And internet has been such a big part of my social life since I was first online in chat rooms when I was, 14, 15? And now I'm 40. So, yeah, I've just kind of realized how lonely I am and how I don't have... One of my friends was asking me, she was talking about how, friends were indecisive about activities and then, last minute changing plans and that kind of stuff, and how that's really hard on her. And is this a her thing or does it happen to me? And I was like, I don't have friends. I don't have social groups. I don't, even since the lockdown, I'm not doing any of the toddler groups anymore. That's just because Rainbow's gotten older, so we're not doing toddler groups anymore. But I don't socialize with other mums while waiting for pickup and drop off. My older one is old enough that we don't go to the park after school anymore, where we used to go and hang out. But the younger one, her friends don't do that yet, or ever. I don't know if they will. So I don't interact with people anymore. And I hadn't realized quite how much it had gotten until these last couple of weeks when I was home with the kids, first with COVID and then with the Easter holidays. But yeah, so I've been feeling really isolated, which I didn't notice, and lonely. And I basically want to run out in the world screaming, pay attention to me. Even the knitting podcasts that I've been watching, a lot of the people I've been watching for a long time, their lives have changed. They're not putting out lots of videos, and the newer ones I found, none of them really feel like that parasocial level of, oh, this person's really my friend, even though they don't know I exist. Or I just haven't had enough time to build that kind of feeling towards a stranger on the internet. So I'm not even getting parasocial levels of social bonding. Yeah, so that's kind of where I am emotionally. But like I said, I've had some good emotional interactions, getting to go out with my friend yesterday, even though I was stupid tired. I was fine when I was riding my bike. I wasn't feeling particularly tired then. But then when I had to make a decision, I'm standing in the middle of this garden center. I came here to buy flowers. I've got the trailer attached to my bike so I can take plants home. And I'm just stood here not able to make a single decision. I should have brought tan bark. I've got plans that involve laying bark down. Anyway, no brain at all. Just so tired. But it was still a really good, emotional filling up the social reserves thing. So hopefully I can find constructive ways to fill the social tanks and get energy that way. Because I'm all the personality tests to find out if you're an introvert or an extrovert, and I'm dead even. So I have basically even extrovert and introvert qualities. I need very specific interactions with other people to boost me up. And any other kind of interaction is just completely draining and I can't handle it. And then I go hide by myself for apparently 3 years and never talk to anyone. So yeah, my revelation is that I need to spend more time working on developing friendships and having people to talk to. And it can be online. That's fine. Online's great for me. I'm good at online. But I need to be having that. Also, do you see how beautiful my tulips are? I cannot get over it. They were in other rooms in the house and I moved them here so I could have them for my video because they're beautiful and I love them and they make me happy. And on that note, I hope you have things going on in your life that make you happy. And if you are as lonely as I am, feel free to say so in the comments and we can be friends. Because if you watch this whole thing, we're friends. I don't care. We're best buds. That's besties. We'll do thumbs where you can see them. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. And hopefully it won't be 2 months again. Hopefully we'll be able to do this on a more regular schedule. Fortnightly sounds good. I was doing weekly for a while. That was impressive. But we will see. Thank you very much for watching. Bye. We have